Did the late Queen Elizabeth once order a documentary about her family be forever hidden? The internet says it's true. Welcome to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds like it's made up, but it's really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience. My name is Michael Kent. Today is the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, England's longest reigning monarch, and the last Queen of England we'll see in our lifetime. So I thought it would be a great week to revisit the story that I did on the royal family as episode 22 of the podcast back in February of 2021. As you're listening, don't forget to buy your t-shirt or mug to help support this podcast. You can do that on the internetsaysitstrue.com. Just click merch. Also, if you want to go above and beyond and you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That link is also on the website. Finally, I wanted to remind you to leave a review after you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts. If you leave a 5-star review with a few words, it sort of tricks the algorithm into showing the podcast to more people as a suggestion, which obviously helps me out. So let's rewind back to February of 2021. This was originally episode 22 of the podcast.
Hi, this is Matt from Western-super-Mare, and I recently learned that a documentary about the royal family aired in 1969 and was banned by the Queen and hasn't been seen since. It was recently leaked on the internet. Thought you'd like to Google that. Thanks.
I like this one. My wife and I have been watching The Crown on Netflix, and I have to say I had no interest in the royal family before watching it. I would even go so far as to say it's incredibly hard for me as an American to understand the idea of a royal family. I've always thought that if I were living in the United Kingdom, I'd have a real problem knowing that a chunk of my taxes go towards supporting this one family. But I'll also say that watching this series on television has helped me understand a little bit better and appreciate how the royal family represents ideals, traditions, and something that can be argued as very symbolically important. So I know a little bit about this documentary and how it was banned because they talk about it in The Crown. It's the 3rd season, and the episode is called Bubbikins. But I'm really curious now how much truth there is in it. There are aspects of the show that are dramatized, so let's take a look. I find this fascinating. I think in the television series, they must have squished together about 10 years worth of public sentiment and things that happened in the 60s. For instance, there were some unflattering newspaper articles criticizing the royal family in the late 50s, and that started a small but growing sentiment among British citizens that the idea of a royal family and monarchy in general was antiquated and unnecessary in a modern world, and it painted them as out of touch. And in the show, in The Crown, they sort of squeeze all that together into like one episode. But there is a history here, and a horrible mining disaster in 1966 killed 116 children. And some citizens in the UK didn't think the Queen was responsive enough in consoling the community. She waited 8 days to visit, and she has since said it's her biggest regret as Queen that she waited so long. She was excoriated in the press. The public was desperate to see emotion and empathy from the royal family. And that leads us to this documentary. In 1969, the Queen's press secretary, Sir William Heselton, along with Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, had the idea to pull back the royal curtain by inviting a documentary crew to follow the royal family around for a few months and expose some of the inner workings of the family to the public. In addition to adding a feel of humanity to the Queen and her family, they thought that it would help modernize the crown and help the United Kingdom to understand what goes on behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace. In the end, they shot 43 hours of footage of the family at locations all over the UK: the Palace, Windsor Castle, Balmoral Castle, the Royal Yacht, the Royal Train, the Royal Private Jet, Sandringham, all over their properties. It covered meetings with diplomats from all over the world, lavish dinners, the investiture of Prince Charles of Prince of Wales, and several private family moments. When I come back from a short break, I'll talk about how the documentary was received. When I work with advertisers, I love it when I find a company that shares my values and the values of my listeners. Alder New York is exactly that. They respect diversity and know that when it comes to skincare, being inclusive is the name of the game. No matter your age, gender, or ethnicity, they've got products that you can implement into your skincare routine immediately. And you can trust me because that's how it worked for me. Clean, luxury skincare does not have to break the bank. Alder New York makes skincare products with dermatologist-approved ingredients and plant-powered actives starting at just $7.99. They've been loved by editors at Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, GQ, Men's Health, and more. Experience the products that Allure calls simple, sleek, and highly effective. And use code INTERNET, INTERNET, for 15% off your first order at aldernewyork.com. That's ALDER New-York.com, or just use the link in the show notes. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent.
Hi, this is Sue Foley, and inviting you to listen to Music Journeys. Here, local and national artists share how the love of music began and what inspired their latest project. Mike Foley blends it all together with some music. Now, you can't believe him if he says he's related to me and inherited my musical talent, but you can be sure that other Foley will deliver a worthwhile listening experience too. Listen to Music Journeys Saturday mornings at 11:30 on WCBE and in the podcast experience at WCBE.org.
The documentary aired on June 21st in 1969 on the BBC, and it was edited into a 90-minute show called Royal Family. It was watched live by nearly 1/3 of the United Kingdom, 30.6 million viewers. It was sold around the world and seen by 350 million people. It was one of the largest viewing audiences of any show at that time, and it still ranks today third in the list of largest viewing audiences in the UK, behind the 1966 World Cup and Princess Diana's funeral. The documentary was immensely popular, and all people talked about it. For the first time, the veil of mystery had been pulled back to see what day-to-day life is like for the family. For many, it was the first time that they saw the Queen as a mother and family member. They were stunned to see the Queen using her own money to pay for ice cream. In fact, it was one of the first time any of the royal family had been televised speaking in a way that wasn't carefully scripted and planned. Unlike the way the documentary was portrayed in the Netflix series The Crown, the general public overwhelmingly loved the show. But it also had a lot of critics. Traditionalists in England were mortified, for instance, to see Queen Elizabeth storing leftover food in Tupperware, which was seen as something that was below her station in life by staunch conservatives. Some thought that it was important to maintain a sense of mystery and intrigue to the royal family. At one point in the documentary, some of the palace housekeepers are discussing the linens and blankets and how they date back to Queen Victoria. The waitstaff displays lavish dinner setups with stacks of silver and gold plates. Not exactly the type of thing you would want to show if you were trying to convince the public that you're just like them. Then at another point, we meet many diplomats as they have an audience with the Queen. There's a very awkward scene with Richard Nixon where he just seems incredibly out of place and nervous. I guess anyone would be. The scenes that are meant to show the royal family as a normal, everyday family fall short. At one point, they're gathered around a television watching I Love Lucy, and they just seem stiff and uncomfortable, like they don't know how to act around each other. Prince Philip laughs at the show and utters, "So stupid." Then there's a scene where the Queen, her husband Prince Philip, and their children Prince Charles and Princess Anne are eating breakfast together and chatting. There are several bits here that I can't believe they aired. For example, they're talking about how Queen Victoria once had to keep from laughing as an ambassador tumbled and fell down some stairs. And then she goes on to compare an American ambassador to an ape and laughed about how she could barely keep from laughing at his appearance. Prince Philip goes on to talk about the Queen's father, King George VI, how he would yell and swear while gardening, and the Queen looks uncomfortable as he says it. While many in the country loved it, the Queen was embarrassed by it. Soon after airing, she had the film banned from being aired and ordered all copies to stop being sold. She didn't like the idea from the beginning and didn't like how it portrayed the family. In fact, it seems like Prince Philip was one of the documentary's only supporters. The Queen's daughter, Princess Anne, discussed the documentary many years later.
I don't quite know how to put this, but I never liked the idea of the royal family film. I always thought it was a rotten idea. The attention that had been brought on one ever since one was a child, you just didn't want any more. And the last thing you needed was greater access.
Permission was given for the film to be shown once more on British television about a decade later in 1977, but it's been kept in a vault ever since. Then recently, like 2021 recently, the entire 90-minute film was briefly leaked and put onto YouTube. It was quickly taken down, but not after a few thousand people watched it. One source from the Royal Palace told The Times it should not be on YouTube, and if it does appear, we would expect it to be taken down. And it was, very quickly. As you can tell from the details I'm able to tell you about the documentary, I may or may not have seen the entire thing. Keep in mind, many of these details have been discussed in articles on the internet as well. Okay, fine, yes, I saw it. I watched all of it. And it was pretty slow, but really interesting. Listen, you told me what to Google, and I did. And here's a challenge for you. If your Google foo is strong, you may be able to find it for yourself. It's time for the part of the podcast where I call a friend and see if they already know what we have just learned. And today I've invited my good friend Lance Thompson on the show. I've known Lance for many years in his role as someone who brings entertainment to college campuses, and he's also one of the funniest people I know. He currently has an irreverent podcast called Self-Hating Podcast, which is all about why he hates podcasts.
Well, hello.
What's going on, Lance Thompson?
Well, not much. What's up with you?
You know, it's a blizzard here today. We've got 6 inches of snow on the ground from overnight. There was no snow yesterday, and no one's going anywhere today. So that's kind of fun.
I feel like we have at least 12 inches.
Oh my
It was
God.
a lot of snow. I shoveled this morning, and it's already filled. So,
Well, I brought you on the show to ask you, we're going to do a quick quiz, and you don't know what it's about, and that's part of the show. So
sweet.
There are stakes, there are prizes to each one of these questions. So for question number 1, if you get this first question right, I will donate 4 sweaters to people who need them. If you get it wrong, I will only donate 1 sweater. So if you miss this first question, 3 people may go cold this winter, and it'll be your fault.
So you're going to donate them to, like, middle school, like, little girls in their class? Because they're always cold.
That... That's creepy. Why would I just walk into a school and be like, anyone need some sweaters?
Well, who else would need them? I mean,
Like homeless people.
oh, okay.
Give them to like AmVets or something.
Get them a coat.
Yeah, I have extra coats too. I have a lot
Okay.
more extra sweaters than I have extra coats. And my wife and I disagree on this because she's always like, you have way too many coats. But I like all my coats and they're all for different things. So I have my old marching band like letter jacket.
Yeah.
and she hates it, but I wear it, you know, if I ever go to a football game, I wear it.
Oh, I thought you would have framed that already.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't framed it. I have my original marching band hat that sits on my, behind my desk and all that. So,
Yes.
well, here's your first question.
Okay.
A documentary followed a family around in 1969 and was banned from ever being seen by that family until it was leaked onto the internet this month. Which one of these families was it? A. Elvis Presley. B. Queen Elizabeth and the royal family. C. Queen Latifah.
I'm going to go with B.
You are correct. It's Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth and the royal family. They hired a film crew to follow them around for several months in 1969. It aired, was immensely popular. The Queen hated it, banned it, completely canned the thing. And while everyone loved it and it was a huge audience, no one ever saw it again until it got put on YouTube like last week.
So they did show it. Like, they didn't just ban it outright?
No, they showed it. And in fact, the Queen screened it before it aired, and they aired it anyway. But then afterward, she decided she didn't like it. So basically, you got that right, which means I will be donating 4 sweaters to
Like,
people
of
who
your
need it.
own, or are you going to go to, like, Goodwill and, like...
Well, no, I'm getting my own sweaters. I'm not gonna take sweaters that someone else donated and then redonate them somewhere else. Like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to Goodwill, buy 4 sweaters, and then donate them back to Goodwill. No, that doesn't count. I'm not. I'm not skating around my own quiz.
That's how my wife gets all her clothes. She like buys, and then she like gets tired of it, gives it to Goodwill. Then we go to Goodwill and buy more.
That seems pointless. No, I have extra sweaters that either don't fit me, in my new pandemic form. They don't fit my belly. So So question number 2 for this question. And I should note that with your job, you've met lots of famous people, or at least semi-famous, and I have as well, at least B-level people.
Right.
If you get this question right, I will tell you the worst celebrity encounter I've ever had. If you get it wrong, you have to tell me the worst celebrity encounter you've ever had.
Oh, man.
Do you have one in mind, or a few in mind?
Let me think here. I mean, I don't know if I've had like a bad one. I've had a weird one, so maybe I'll go with that one.
So you can tell the weird one.
Okay.
And if you get the question wrong, and this is sort of a difficult question.
Okay.
Which of these is not, only one of these, which one of these is not a way to address the Queen?
Okay.
A, Your Majesty. B, Your Royal Highness. C, Ma'am.
Which is one that you can't address the Queen?
Yeah. Only one of these is not a proper way to address the Queen. I mean, you can, but it's not proper. You can say anything you want to the Queen, really.
It feels like C's too obvious because you've said that this is difficult.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything. Huh?
Yeah. Okay, what was the first one again?
The first one is Your Majesty. The second one is Your Royal Highness. And the third one is Ma'am.
I'll go with Ma'am.
I'm sorry. Ma'am is a proper way to address the Queen. The one that is not a proper way is Your Royal Highness. So they get that title when they're royals.
Right.
HRH, His Royal Highness, Her Royal Highness. But when you're Queen, she becomes Your Majesty, and it's no longer proper to address her as Your Royal Highness because you say Your Majesty instead.
Because she's too high.
And Ma'am is proper as long as you have already referred to her as Your Majesty. So you got that one wrong, which means you have to tell me about a strange celebrity encounter.
So
you don't have to use the name if this is gonna, get back.
No,
to the
no. I'm sure he does not care.
Listen to my podcast.
Yeah, no. So I worked at Barnes and Noble in Milwaukee after college, like right after college, and so my second day, I worked in the music section, which still exists at Barnes and Noble, but they don't really have anyone specifically like working in there anymore because no one buys music or movies. So I'm sitting there and my boss is kind of standing next to me, and we're just at that point I'm just working the register so he can tell me when I'm like messing up or whatever. And this strange looking old man that looks nearly homeless, and my boss kind of looks and he's kind of like, what's this guy's deal? And he comes up to the register and he points behind me and he's like, I want all 5 seasons of 6 Feet Under on DVD that are behind you. And I'm like, okay, thank you, sir. So I go behind and I grab them, and at this point, and at Barnes and Noble, they're like $80 a piece. So he's spending like $500 on DVDs essentially, and we think this dude is like a homeless man. Like, he just looks like hell. And so I'm like ringing him up, and then my boss is like, you have to ask him if he wants like the membership card, from Barnes and Noble. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, sir, would you like to get our membership card? You can get 10% off, blah 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 blah. And he's like, nah, no problem. I don't want any of that. And as that's kind of happening, my boss is on the phone with another person, and they're like, we think that Neil Diamond is in the store right now. And I'm like, oh, and like, so he's like, so then my boss kind of turns to him. He's like, you kind of look like Neil Diamond. He's like, you ever get that? And he's like, yeah. So so I rang him up and all this stuff, and he like, he goes off on his way. And we're just like, that was really weird. And so we look at the receipt, and it's signed like Neil Diamond.
Unbelievable.
And so, and then we kind of looked, and he had a concert like that next day in town.
Wow.
And we just thought it was very strange, that he wouldn't want to get this like membership card, because he'd save $50 on this, purchase. But then we're like, oh, he's Neil Diamond. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so it was one of the stranger things that's happened to me, because we totally thought this guy was like scamming us.
He's a big Michael C. Hall fan, Neil Diamond.
Right.
Came in, bought 6 Feet Under, and then he's going to come back for Dexter.
Right. We just totally thought we were getting scammed, and it was
that was
really Neil Diamond.
The real deal. That's hilarious. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, question number 3. If you get this one right, I will send you in the mail a Tell Me What to Google sticker.
Ooh.
If you get it wrong, you have to send me something from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
In the mail. It can be a sticker. I don't care what it is. Put these royal scandals in order from oldest to most recent. So there are 3 royal scandals that I'm going to list.
Okay.
And you have to order them from oldest to most recent. Number 1, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle exit the royal life.
Right.
Number 2, Prince Charles divorces Princess Diana. Number 3, King Edward VIII was friends with Hitler. Are you choking on the water because the question is so easy?
Prince Edward VIII and is friends with Hitler?
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's true.
How did they figure that out?
It came out after the fact. So he abdicated the throne because he was in love with a woman who had been divorced, and maybe was still even married to. It was an American woman, and so he chose love over being king. So he abdicated the throne, but he also sympathized with Nazis, essentially.
Oh.
And
so he wasn't just friends with Hitler. He was
well, I think what he was looking for was not to have. He wanted to end the war, and he was looking for peace. And so he thought the way to do that, for some reason, he thought Hitler was a reasonable guy. And
right.
Even met with him on several occasions about the war, and yeah, it was a really, really screwed up thing. Yeah, he didn't understand the atrocities that were happening with Hitler, and was friends with the dude. So yeah, so there's
that one is the oldest for sure.
Yes, that's the oldest.
And then Princess Di getting divorced, that certainly would be in the middle. And then the Meghan Markle, that would be the earliest one.
Yes, that one was kind of easy. So also because I just want you to have one of these stickers, so I'll send you one.
Yes.
And I'll still take anything from Kenosha if you have any,
Okay.
Whatever it might be. Question 4. If you get the next question wrong, you have to take me to the Cheese Castle next time I'm in Kenosha.
Oh, nice.
If you get it right, I'll drive.
Okay.
I just want to go to the Cheese Castle.
Yes. Well, yeah, it's there's like a whole full like restaurant and bar in that place. It's crazy.
That's awesome. I went last time, and I bought, I don't know, $30 worth of cheese.
Which is like one bag.
Yeah, exactly. It's very expensive. And I left it all in the hotel room. I forgot. I put it in the fridge, in the mini fridge, and I left it all. And I was so mad when I realized.
No.
I didn't realize it till I was driving back to the airport and didn't have time to turn around. So The royal family documentary, the one that this episode is about, covered the investiture of Charles as Prince of Wales. The question is, what is investiture? And you get 3 choices here.
Okay.
A, it's a formal ceremony similar to a coronation. B, it's when he is given land and a share of money from the country. Or C, when people from the internet band together to invest in a short squeeze on a country's wealth.
Sure. Is a short and a squeeze the same thing? Jeez.
I think
I've been so confused all week.
Me too. I'm so confused. No, a short squeeze is what they did to the people who were already shorting the stocks.
Oh, okay.
So basically, they ruined these guys' plan to have, they needed these stocks to lose money. And
right.
These people drove up the value and
that's the
squeezed
squeeze.
These guys so that they lost money. And that's as much as I understand of the whole thing. It's very confusing to someone who isn't like in that world. I pay a guy to do my investing.
Well, right, and you even have like a decent business sense, I mean, it's being like your own boss kind of thing. But I can,
It's so confusing. It's so confusing. And it doesn't. I don't think business sense matters when it comes to the stock market because none of it makes sense. It is such its own thing, and so much of it is a fraud and a scam with this shorting. Oh, so
it's like sports betting.
Yeah, it is. It's like like betting futures, like oil futures and stuff. It's like speculative stuff. It doesn't make any sense. All right.
Yep.
So investiture.
Okay, I'm gonna answer. This is my final. I'm gonna say that he got like land and money from the country.
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
I'm sorry. He doesn't. He has already got the land and the money. The investiture is nothing but a formal ceremony. It is nothing but it's pomp and circumstance to show I am the Prince of Wales. Here is me. Here I am. Question 5 is for all the marbles. This is our final question.
Jeez.
This is for all the marbles. If you get this wrong, I'm banning you from this show, never to be asked on again.
Oh gosh.
How's your 2021 going? That's your question.
That's a good question. There hasn't been a lot of new music. Like for some reason, like musical artists aren't like releasing new albums, so it's been kind of dull for the most part, because that's what I do like while I'm working is I listen to new music. So it's just been kind of dull in that sense. But otherwise, I mean, my kid goes back to in-person school on March 1st, so that's good. And he started Taekwondo, so I've been taking him to that. I mean, I'm just kind of living for him now. So, yeah, it's been good.
That's awesome. Well, you've got that question right, so I may ask you back on the show again, Lance.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your podcast. What's going on with this?
Oh, gosh. And I know I told you I started my last episode, and I got like halfway through, and these things, my microphone died.
Oh, no.
So I've been kind of thinking about doing this podcast for a little while about how I just have no interest. Why do I have no interest in podcasts? Like, why? And so I had 3 episodes, like ideas for them. The first one is about this podcast that I listened to like religiously for a couple years, and then it got completely blown up, and there's still drama like 4 years later about it, and just awful, and so that kind of spoiled things. The second episode is about how music, like I find if I listen to a podcast, like I'll have to pay attention, and I don't have to do that with music, and I don't want to like waste that time listening to a podcast when I could be listening to music. And now this third one is going to be about true crime and how I find it to be kind of disgusting.
I've heard your opinion on this, and I really look forward to listening to it. And I'm going to come on your show and make a case for podcasts.
Yes.
And present the other side of the coin. But that said, I do understand. I've always felt that way about stuff, but at the same time also consumed that that type of content.
Right.
I do listen to true crime, but I see it the same way that I see like Dateline NBC when they're To Catch a Predator. It seems
Right.
very smutty, and they might be doing something that's good for society or whatever, but it's
Right.
also very like train wreck. Like, it's very like we're all voyeurs at heart. Like we all like to
Right.
peer into other people's worlds when there is crisis and conflict going on, and it's the
Yep.
reason news is popular. So
Right.
yeah, I dig it, man. I've listened to your first episodes, and I love the concept. It's very meta, but it's it's also, there's a fair amount of irony in a podcast about how you hate podcasts, and I love that too. So you can check it out. It's called the Self-Hating just Self-Hating Podcast. No the.
Yes.
So search.
I don't really know. I usually tell people not to listen to it. And the episodes the first one's like 12 minutes and the second one's like 15. I think the third one will be a little bit longer. But yeah,
Yeah.
I try and keep it quick.
So can I make a prediction?
Yes.
By the end of your podcast, you will be listening to more podcasts and you will be enjoying podcasts.
Maybe. I mean, because I know you're you're a music guy too. So I just.
Yep. I'm a
I don't
music
know.
guy, but I don't I only put on music when I'm really need to, like when I'm writing, I need to listen to music.
Mhm.
But there are so many times in my life, and we can get into this on your show, not necessarily on mine.
No.
but
Yeah.
So many times in my life when I'm traveling from one place to another, spending time in my car, doing whatever, and I like to engage my brain that way. Whereas
Right.
music doesn't. Music almost does the other thing where it makes me check out. So that's why, and I always like to feel like I'm learning and
You're doing
advancing.
something.
You're doing something, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, dude, it was a pleasure having you on the show, and I hope to bring you back on sometime soon. I like to do repeat guests on this show, so I'm sure
Okay.
that you'll be back at some point. And
Awesome.
Thanks again, man.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's all for this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please help me out by leaving a review of the podcast on iTunes. I'm trying to get more people to listen to this podcast every week. And in addition to just leaving, 5 stars of the podcast, leave a sentence or two, because writing a few words helps a ton to allow other people to listen and to allow other people to tell me what to Google. I'll see you next week. Tell Me What to Google would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions put them at producer status: Sean Brown, Catherine Morgan, Taylor Hurt, Bryce Swanson, Mitch Joseph Kemplin, David Lucas, Alan Sokolic, Eugene Anderson, Scott Schuler. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Reed Mathis, and additional music this week was from Asher Falero. All audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17, USC Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for Tell Me What to Google wherever you get your podcasts. And you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.